Welcome, my friends, to the Sage of Quay Radio Hour, your home for free and critical thinking, and I'm your host, Mike Williams. Tonight, my friend Cara St. returns to the show. The conversation is wide-ranging as we share our perspectives and thoughts on the state of the truther and alternative research communities. And so, without further ado, here's Cara. Well, friends, we have another great show today, as we always do, because I have great guests, and Cara St. is back with us. And the last time Cara and I got together, we did a show on cannabis, Cara. That's what we did.
Yes.
And for this show, what we're going to do, the topic is going to be fully haunted activists. And you're going to take us through that, and I'm going to ask questions as we go along. So it sounds very intriguing to me. I think I have an idea of what it is, but I'm not going to say anything because I'll probably miss the boat to some degree.
Yeah.
Okay,
you would never miss the boat, Mike. You would never miss the boat.
Well, that's very kind, but I have.
Okay, but it is an intriguing term, isn't it?
It is a very intriguing
term. Man, I came across this like a week ago, and I wish I've got the word out right now because I did not coin this phrase, and it's such a brilliant phrase. I would never take credit for it. I would like to know who did, though, so that we can get to the base of that because it's brilliant, you know. So I've got the word out right now. If you're out there and you're listening and you happen to know who, or you have part of the trail and we can figure out where this term originated, I would be extremely appreciative. So, and what I was saying to Mike as well, who is kindly being very understanding about the fact that this topic needs to be fleshed out. This topic has many layers. It has a surface layer, which is really important, and we need to be talking about that right now. But as we go through the conversation, you'll see this is a germinal topic. It goes down and down and down and down. And Mike's trained in some things that will help him, help me, help him, help you, help everybody kind of get to the next level down as we go down. Or N is probably a better way to put it, Mike. So yeah, it's the fully haunted activist. So what the heck does that mean? All right, so I came across the term, and what that set in motion for me was huge. It was like an ocean, yeah? Because things lately have been confusing, Mike. Would you agree?
Yes. Especially in the truth community and the alternative research community. Not that it has never been confusing, but it just seems like there's more breakage and there's a more fracturing of the community, and it's just kind of drifting apart. So it's not cohesive, I guess is what I'm saying.
You're right about that. And you just went to one of the main points is it's in a state of disintegration that I've never seen before. I've been around 7-8 years now, not as long as you have, but in the truther, alternative community, things change rather quickly on the one hand. On the other hand, they stay the same. It's the same shit new day. Excuse my language. That's my only apology. I'll try not to get too salty. But, things have been confusing and a bit more unreliable than they've been in the past. I've always prided myself on having learned a lesson early on of who the small sort of community that I can cling to, but even that right now for everyone, not just for me, but for everyone, it's exploding, I would say. That's a good way to put it. Everything's going in all different directions right now. The lines are moving, the lines of allegiances, the lines of a concentration, the lines of subject matter, the lines of everything is moving right now, and everything's in play right now. Okay. It's like trapdoors are opening under people's feet, and you look and you see somebody and then suddenly they're gone and you're like, what happened there? And it's like a trapdoor opened and they went through it somehow, shifting sands. So because I'm feeling this so deeply right now, and I know many, many, many of us are, the term fully haunted activist sort of slapped me in the face, and I'm really, really quite grateful for that, Anyway, so it stopped me on my tracks, and I just sat on it, and I realized thinking about it, it's going to be pretty deep, and I just kind of talked to Mike, pre-talked to Mike about potentially coming back either on his show or my show just to have like a next conversation about it. When he's got time, he's awful busy. So, and everything we do right now is critical, right? Everything we do post-eclipse, which was just about a year ago, is extremely critical in my view. Not everybody agrees with that. Not everybody even knows the eclipse happened, Mike. You know.
I know.
Whatever.
They're playing with their phones.
Right? Yeah. You're right. Oh, you're so right. Right. But some of us noticed and some of us talked about it. Anyway, so I sat with it and I realized we could have about 10 subcategories. I hope that doesn't scare you, but we don't have to do that all today.
No. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All right. So it's important to me. And I told Michael I'm working from notes today a little bit, which is something I never do. You guys know me. I completely wing it all the time. But I want this to be methodical and I want it to be coherent. I want us to do it that way. It's like when I write nonfiction. Yeah. It's a whole different thing. It's a whole different mindset. So let's do this a different way today. Because I want to make a statement up front because so much in our community right now feels to me anyway like a shipwreck. It's like a shipwreck. Boom. Ship sinking. Bottom of the sea. What happened, you know? The expectations of the folks you're just sure are going to be floating around on the surface, you know, after the wreckage with you. You're going to look and they're going to be there completely changed. And that shakes you up. It would shake you up. It should shake you up. But my sense is we really shouldn't spend a whole lot of time thinking about that. Yeah?
Right. That's right.
I don't think so. I think that is just a big time sucker. It almost doesn't matter. It almost doesn't matter anymore. It would have mattered to me tremendously even 6 months ago. But no, I think that's a big thing we should not put too much time and energy in. But if you're a thinking person in this community, meaning the alternative community or the truther community, whatever that means now, then your first question is going to be, where is everyone? What's this splintering off? Because there's a lot of that going on right now. So if you lift your head out of your research, or as Mike said, out of your phone, have a look around if you haven't noticed yet. To me, I just said to him before the show started, it's like an Escher staircase. Where's the beginning? Where's the end? What the hell happened? I used to know my room was on the right at the top of this landing. There is no landing anymore. It's this illusion, clearly this illusion that we're looking at. Okay, so I got a couple people I go to for germinal conversations. Mike Williams is one of them, so here we are. Okay. One question, though, we can save for later, though, Mike, and I want to kind of bookmark this for later. This splintering off, this breaking up of the boat, is it a direct result of the deliberate demolition of Facebook?
That's a good question.
Right?
I think the splintering, to be honest with you, when I kind of look at it, because I see it, I've seen it for a long time, to be honest, yeah. Cara, you know, it's, there's different characters that page in and out. And there are those that seem very genuine at moments, and you might befriend them or associate with them to some degree, and then you realize that something's not quite right with that interaction anymore or that relationship anymore. I honestly believe we're going through a period where we are having a separation of the wheat from the chaff. That's what I believe it is. Those that are artificial, those that are not sincere and not genuine, they're being exposed, for being who or what they are.
Right.
And those that are still on track and still come at this from their heart, they're going to continue forward. But what it's going to mean in that process, there's a transformation that's taking place. And some of it is painful because, you had people that you did associate with, people that you consider to be your friends. You might still consider them your friends, but you're realizing that the commonality that you had with them is waning, or it's fractured, or, perhaps it's just not even there anymore. I've gone through this. With a particular community that I was never like overly close with, but I was, I would say, plugged in and doing what I can to push the word forward, the awareness, I should say. And I came to the realization that I still believe in that piece of alternative research. I want to take it to the next level. I'm talking about geocentrism for those that are, trying to figure out what I'm talking about. But the quote-unquote core community involved in it, has become a cartoon. And it's become a religion. It's become a
Right.
belief system. And they're really, at the end of the day, no matter how many words they talk to the contrary, that's where they want to stay. They really don't want to push the envelope forward. So it's almost
Mm-hmm.
as if we want to corral people into a certain space, get them there, and then just manage them in that space.
That's it, right? That's haunting. That is something we're going to talk about in depth. This being corralled, being haunted from outside.
Yeah, yeah. And I
Yeah.
don't like, see, me personally, and I know you're the same way, we don't like being corralled. I
Mm-mm.
don't want
No.
to be, I don't follow anybody. I don't look at certain people as leaders. I will listen to certain folks and I'll say that they have an empowering voice or they're making sense to me and they're making good points.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not a person. I've never been that way in my life, even as a kid.
Right.
You know, being stuffed in a corner somewhere and told, just stay there. It's good enough. It's good enough to be there. And no, it's
Yeah.
not good enough to be there because there's so much more to learn.
Exactly. So a couple of things that you said that I want to kind of come back to that are important. First of all, this idea that it's all become a cartoon is extremely important. We become a caricature of these things that we're talking about, number one. Number two, somebody I was talking to yesterday said the same thing. The people she walks away from, she's talking Facebook, of course, because that's sort of the general gathering place. The people she walks away from are the one who seem to be evangelizing and yelling at people all the time.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. It's the ego thing. It's the,
Yeah.
right. It's I'm smarter than you. And if you're not thinking the way I think, then you're not thinking. That's the
Yeah.
whole approach that they have. And many of them, I shouldn't say many. That's probably not fair. But there's a fair share of them that they have a certain demeanor when they're speaking generally to the public or they're presenting or they have lectures and stuff like that, doing videos, whatnot. But their true colors bleed out
Yeah, eventually, right?
eventually.
And these can be people who didn't start out that way too, Mike.
Right.
They evolved from various hauntings inside and outside. And I'm just going to continue to use that word because I think it's one of those words that A is very precise to what I mean, and B causes us to stop and think about what we just said. And what happens is we talk about these things. We tend to use the same words. The words lose all meaning. People snooze right past them. We use a word like haunting. We use like your brain is occupied space. People think about, oh, what did you just say? Does that even make any sense? Oh, well, at least I'm listening to you, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, there's that. And then it can be people who didn't start out that way, perhaps. We all have our tendencies, which is something we'll talk about as well, both manufactured and what we brought in with us, yeah, that make us susceptible to outside coercion or outside manipulation. I mean, God, we've been talking about that for years now. We call it social engineering. There's just, but it's sort of everything we're swimming around in, you know? And so your weaknesses maybe, or your proclivities get picked up on, and perhaps your ego is stroked a bit. You go that way. You go the way they want you to go. Do you know what I mean? Suddenly you're examining your own belly button, thinking that your belly button's awful special. Yeah. And yours is the only one that you should be examining. When we get that far inside ourselves, I think there's a problem, Mike, because we're not really meant to do that. I don't think. My opinion, guys, but I think it causes problems. And just briefly before we move on, I want to ask Mike about, I'm going to keep asking about Facebook. It's not a popular position for me to take. I realize that because the popular position is, let's meet someplace else, all three of us. And then three of us go there, and then three of us go somewhere else, you know. It's by design. You know, I remember when in Britain, it was in the newspapers, mainstream media, get off Facebook, blah, blah, blah. Elon Musk, get off Facebook. George Soros, get off Facebook. Because, why? Because of what we used to talk about, this group that they had not seen coming, that we had inadvertently formed a massive power communication base. Can be manipulated, but the news, guys, is that every single one of them out there is manipulated. If you think you can find a safe space, I'm going to use some salty language now, but in Britain they say fuck off to your safe space. If you think you can do that, you can't. You can't. There's no safe space. You just gotta, this is part of what's going on for people is they can't hold their water. They don't hold their nerve. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Gotta hold your nerve, even though, but this is one of the reasons we're having this conversation. This is one of the reasons because I know that I'm not the only one feeling this way, you know? Anyway, so I just wanted to say that about Facebook. I don't know, Mike, do you have anything to add? We've kind of talked about Facebook to death a little bit.
Well, I'm going to say that I don't let Facebook bother me. So of course, I hear all of the complaints and the warnings. You know, it's a big CIA database. Of course it is, like everything else that's out there. I just did a show with Jason Boss, who worked for Google, and he worked for Google. I think Jason left back in 2010. And back in 2010, in that interview, Jason was explaining two projects that Google had underway called Project Kansas and Project Sawmill, and they are gathering and accumulating data every which way from Sunday from every single tool and avenue that Google either owns or touches. Okay, so the point I'm trying to make is that there's no avoiding the surveillance state.
No.
There's no avoiding it. Okay, so there is no, like you said, Cara, there's no safe place. There's no place where you can be where somebody can't touch you, find out about you, and all that stuff. So the way I look at Facebook is just like YouTube and everything else, these platforms, it's a tool.
Yeah.
And I use it as a tool to get my message out, to get the message out of my guests and so on. That's what I use it for. What I don't use it for is I don't pour my personal life into it. Okay?
Right.
That's where a lot of people make a big mistake. First of all, I don't know why anybody would want to talk about their personal life the way some people do, whether it's on Facebook or any place else. Okay, even if you're talking one-on-one with somebody, why would you talk about certain things that people just feel very at ease at talking about? I don't get that. That's not me. I'm a person that likes my private life. I do. Yeah. Even though I do this radio show and people might think that they might know me, they really don't know me outside of the radio. And so that's how I look at Facebook. I don't get overly concerned about it because I only put up on it what I want to put up on it that helps to foster moving the message forward. If you might see a picture or two every once in a while of maybe I went to a concert, you know, I took a picture of the band or whatever. I mean, you can find that picture anywhere on the internet.
Yeah.
Or I might, you know, as you know, put some pictures up where I'm playing my guitar. Okay. That's about as personal as it's going to get. So that's how I look at Facebook. And that's how, you know, I look at all of these platforms. You're not going to hide. I mean, even before these platforms in the United States and, you know, other Western civilizations, you were filling out a tax return. You know how much information is on your tax return?
Right.
Right. How many people in your family, how much money you make, what are your deductions, what's your address, what's your phone number? Okay, so it wasn't electronic back in the day. It was paper. Well, what do you think they weren't accumulating that data either? This data accumulation process has been going on, you know, since day one. So that's my spiel on Facebook.
Oh God, yes. Well, okay, so that's kind of an interesting sidebar though, because it would take people as old as you and I to remember the integrity of I want to make sure I talk about this in a way that we can open it up because there's two sides to every coin. Yeah. The integrity of privacy used to be such that, your parents might not have known who the other one was voting for. Very often that was the case, right?
Yeah.
You didn't want to cause an argument. It wasn't anyone's business, blah, blah, blah. So maybe your dad and your mom didn't even know who the other one was voting for. That was considered to be your business, very private. Now we have it all over the place, okay? The other side of that coin is that that the fallout from that level of privacy was that everybody thought that their own situation was truly unique. And if it happened to be as messy, if their life happened to be as messy as everybody else's life, they really thought they were losers, you know, and that if they said anything about their life, people would know what a loser they really were. You know what I mean?
Right.
So this is the other side of that coin, and it's difficult to navigate those waters. It really is. I think one of the things that I can agree with you on private things on Facebook is that you don't know who's really, and I don't mean the trolls that are watching you, because that's just a given. 4 out of 10, maybe higher, of the people in your lineup, but it's people who are maybe a bit unstable.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes you got that going on, and I remember there was a guy who trolled me on chemtrailing. He was part of a group that regularly, supposedly out of Australia, that regularly suckered people like me or like anybody else who's been prominent in chemtrailing into their group, and then just started to beat the holy crap out of them. And you couldn't completely block the thing. You couldn't completely block everybody that was in the group. And then he went after my kids, And my oldest one said, look, you creepy old losers, stop stalking my mom. It was like that. But I'm thinking, nope, don't talk to him, block him, shut it down, don't engage. But, so there's always that potential. There's always that potential with Facebook, On the other hand, I will tell you, Michael, that Michael knows a lot about me, gang. We've been friends for a long time. So the 2 weeks I was in Maine, I discovered that my younger brother, my stepbrother, me, my brother, and my stepbrother, 3 of us, that my younger brother had also suicided. So both my brothers have suicided, Mike. And I know, it's just me, dude. It was hell growing up in my dad's house, Yeah. So I actually posted that on Facebook because I said, look, don't keep it inside. Just don't. Just don't. And so that kind of thing, it's hard. That's the kind of thing I will put out there. That's the kind of thing I will put out there because I know it will draw people to me who need to know that their situation isn't unique. I remember 1993 when my younger brother committed suicide. I was profoundly embarrassed. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Because it meant that there was something so wrong with our family.
The stigma.
The stigma. And it took me a while to get beyond that. And getting beyond that, I was able to get beyond that because I realized that the numbers, the numbers of suicide, especially amongst young men.
Yes. Yep.
You think of it as a female thing, but it's not.
No, it's not. And it's one of those things that it's not discussed. It's, and,
right.
And the other problem with when you have suicidal ideation or suicidal thoughts is that it's a very blurry line as to how deep the issue is. Could it be that you're just depressed?
Right.
Right? Could it be that maybe you have bipolar? We can give you drugs for that. It's always a solution by the psychiatric part of the world. So, but the point I'm making is that it's not something that is binary where, if you have these thoughts, you immediately think to yourself, oh, something could be very wrong. You're thinking maybe I'm just going through a phase. Maybe I'm going through a cycle. I'll pick up, I'll be okay, because then you will feel okay the next day. That's Charlie. Hold on one second.
Hi, Charlie.
You done, bud?
Sometimes you see pictures of Charlie on Facebook too.
Yeah. He barks very loud.
Yeah.
So that's the thing, it's not one of these things that is very black and white. And,
right.
And it is a very difficult situation. I know people in my life, not family members, but friends who committed suicide.
Yeah.
And it's shocking. Yeah. It's very shocking, and, because when you really think about what it takes to take your own life.
Yeah.
That is something that whenever I think about what that process could be like myself, not that I'm thinking about taking my own life, but when I try to think through what you would have to go through in order to do that.
Right.
Most people cannot go there. In other words, the mind just shuts down.
Right.
The aspect of taking life, not existing anymore. No, there's something inherent within us that says, don't go there. Don't go there.
That's right.
Right. But there are people that do.
Yeah. But anyway, I was using that by way of example because it's something that it's just such familiar territory for me. And I've worked my way up from being profoundly, not just sad, and it sounds stupid. I suppose for people who've not been through this in their sort of immediate environment, to say that you were embarrassed about it doesn't make any sense. It sounds arrogant. But that's really what we're trained to kind of do, is think, oh, God, how imperfect. I hope nobody blah, blah, blah. Anyway, but back to the subject at hand, my darling, the haunted activist. Okay. So let's pick a first question. We've been talking about this long enough that you've got the idea that this is a pretty big subject. This can go so many places.
Oh, yeah.
And it's real important that it do. But we have to start somewhere. So should we start at what kind of personality joins or joined the alternative truther community? What are the characteristics of that person? What were the goals, perhaps, that kind of thing? And then I did what people do. I looked in the dictionary. It's like haunted. What is haunted? Let's start there. As an adjective, there were three adjectives. There were three descriptors as for adjectives: inhabited or frequented by ghosts. Okay, if you can do metaphor, you can go with that one. 2, preoccupied, as with an emotion, memory, or idea. Obsessed. Okay. The third one, disturbed, distressed, worried, haunted by something. Okay. You could add social engineering to that, but it would manifest itself in probably one of the second two that I gave there. So to say something like the fully haunted activist, okay, I think we're dealing with that, a lot of us, and I'm not discounting myself. Okay. I don't think anybody in this conversation can discount themselves because they're alive on the planet right now. Okay. All right. So, but it turns out, and interestingly enough, it keeps coming back to this. My first book was about a haunting. It was called Consolata's Companion. I wrote it when I was living in Kentucky and into the period of time where I moved to Maine. All right. And it was about our shadow. It was about our shadow and our other. I was calling it our egregore because the concept of an egregore was really, really had me at that point. Okay. I've moved from this idea that we have an egregore to any large, singularly, to any large group of people operating together creates an egregore, which is like a negative entity. It's truly like a negative entity that you create when you're working together, okay, or the egregore that's with you, as an individual. I can talk about that a little bit as well. Or I've now started to wonder, Mike, if artificial intelligence isn't an egregore that we've created.
Well, it could be. I will say this, and I've said this on many shows, is that the direction in which this world has taken is directly linked to where the consciousness has gone,
right? Where
it has been steered. So, your thoughts create reality. So if your thoughts go a certain way, whether you do it on your own or whether somebody is trying to steer you, and we can make a very strong case, obviously, that the controllers are steering thought and consciousness,
right?
That yes, you can create a negative environment very easily. And you could do it as an individual. Individuals who are very troubled, they can lead themselves down that path and they can have very severe problems in their life. Maybe they have alcoholism, there's a drug problem, all kinds of things, addictions and vices, I guess is the way I should say it. But then at the macro level, you have a mass consciousness. And if you get enough people to be thinking a certain way or believing a certain way, then that is the reality that's going to manifest.
Right.
It's as simple as that. That's why a lot of people that are in the truth community, especially those that are genuine, are trying to break that pattern.
Right.
That pattern of thinking.
Man, it's hard. It's really hard. You got it. When you see a crack, Mike, you got to grab it for all it's worth and run with it if you can. And even then, you're going to get sucked into some trance somewhere along the line again. You are. And then because they're too good at what they do. And then there'll be another crack eventually, and you have to grab that and run with it. But I'll tell you why I started thinking about artificial intelligence as potentially as an egregore. When I first started writing seriously this year about the Fae, I was given a creation story that never sat well with me at all. It was, my view is that, okay, the Fae is our seed race. I'm not going to hijack this particular show to talk about that. But if you haven't been following my work, then you don't know about the Fae. The Fae is our seed race. There was Source, then there was the Fae, and the Fae were responsible for laying down the electromagnetic grid on our planet that allows us to create. Yeah, it's that simple. But there is a school of thought that says, believe it or not, that there was Source, and then Source created an organic artificial intelligence, which just is an oxymoron anyway, to try out different scenarios of what to create. Now, this was coming from people supposedly with some gravitas, you know? So I had to sit with it for a while, even though I said all along the way, that's just not, I don't, you're saying that Source needed a tool to decide, or to envision different, there are lots of things you're saying, to envision different creation potentials. Source doesn't need anything like that. There's no such thing as organic artificial intelligence anyway. And as Michael just said, we imagine it, it becomes the end. So this is why I think we're authentic intelligence. Artificial intelligence may in fact be something that is a byproduct, a negative waste byproduct. I mean, let's look at it that way. Okay?
The artificial intelligence, what it does is it understands the organic intelligence. It looks for patterns. That's what it does.
Right.
And it understands those patterns, and then it does permutations and calculations. I'm just kind of doing this from like a math type of thing, right? And it figures what's the probability of something happening if a certain situation, circumstance, or variables are put in play. And that's the artificial intelligence. The artificial intelligence studies the organic intelligence, us as an example. Mm-hmm. And it then puts into play these variables, and it looks to see what happens. How do we react? How do we behave? If we don't react and behave exactly the way it thought that, that we might, it makes adjustments to the model until it's able to steer it mostly in the direction that it wants to steer it. On the other hand, what happens is that the organic intelligence, essentially being unaware of the artificial intelligence, has almost no way until you awaken to combat it and to resist it. And the reason why is because you don't really know it exists. Mm-hmm. You just think that your life is just moving along the way life is supposed to move along. You don't question why certain things are going on around you or in your life. Mm-hmm. Right? So this is where it gets very, very challenging. That's why it's very challenging. That's why is it difficult to change the world? Why is it? Well, it's because most people are completely unaware that they're being steered.
Exactly. And organic intelligence, you were talking about how inorganic AI, like the inauthentic intelligence, in my view. I say it that way because I want people to understand that they're the authentic intelligence, because they tend to feel like they're under right now, I suppose they are under the heel of the boot of AI. Yeah. But we don't have to stay there. And I don't think it would take that much to get us out from under there, but there's a lot of fear associated with that. Additionally, we would have to restore the integrity of the ideas of intuition and feeling, because that is what we use to create. Those are just as legitimate as any algorithm, right, that they can come up with. And yet that is what's been denigrated. Feeling, not emotion. I've learned in the last 5 years or so to see the difference between emotion and feeling. Yeah. One is pretty negative. One is destructive. One drives you. And maybe that belongs to AI. I don't know. And feeling is something altogether different. Feeling walks hand in hand with intuition. We do things intuitively, which, by the way, is pretty much why I had to put this proviso at the beginning of the show. Like, Mike, I'm looking at notes, because I usually don't do that, but I do want this to be a very coherent thing so we can all talk about it. All right. So this goes hand in hand for me with wondering in terms of, first of all, before I skip over this, the idea of the emergency nature of gaining control of our own thinking, right? It's also something I've been working on for years. I've tried, half a dozen different ways of approaching that, because many of us, Mike probably included, have a handle on some ways that we can really break free of that, and we can gain control of our own thinking. we've had to define and redefine and redefine and redefine who, what, where, when has a hold of our thinking. Because if we don't, I mean, it's sometimes it doesn't matter because the tools that we can give to each other are that good. And sometimes it does matter because we don't even realize what's going on. Colin Wilson wrote a book. Do you know Colin Wilson?
I know of him, yes.
All right. Well, I came across the book. It's called Mind Predators, I believe. And even though it was written in 1967, so it's a tad dated in terms of projecting the technology for, like 1997, we didn't have floating cars and stuff at least we didn't.
Yeah.
We didn't. But it's a bit dated, but it's fictionalized. And so what he's trying to get across is absolutely authentic. And I do quite believe that there are predators in what we might term the deep subconscious, not just individually, but individually and collectively. And we don't even know they're there. We don't even know they're there.
Yes.
So sometimes it behooves us to redefine predator. We've got them going from the outside and we've got them coming at us from the inside. So anyway, it goes with wondering, in terms of the garbage we're exposed to from the minute we're born, Mike, or before, right? When's the first hijacking? Well, okay, this is Janice Barcelo's stuff. Can't recommend that highly enough. Nobody's got anything on Janice and Barcelo in terms of birth and how we get hijacked. I mean, she's just written the book on it. You go there.
Right. No, excellent work.
Right.
That Janice
right.
has done.
Go
Yes.
there. Listen to it. You need it. If you've given birth, like I have 3 times, prepare yourself to be just bummed out. Journey to the bottom of the bummer, but you got to know this stuff for the next generation, right? Anyway, here's the question I've been thinking about a lot, Mike, lately. And I don't know, maybe you have at some point in your life. What was it I was supposed to be? What was it I came here to do before they got a hold of me? What was that supposed to have been? Right?
Right. Yeah, of course. I think that anybody who is awake should be asking that question. I've asked myself that question, yes.
You wondered about that because you're part of this movement. And like you just said, and because maybe you've realized, at least to a certain extent, the depth to which you're enslaved. Yeah. But even when we push back as hard as we can, the moment in the beginning when we had this task, what was my task? Who was I? What was I actually supposed to be before they made me spend my entire life fighting off their bullshit? All right. Anyway, so the thing is, we do know when we come in. This is another thing that this is okay. So that's a haunting, fully haunted activist. You're carrying all of this with you all the time. We do know, Mike, who we were supposed to be when we came in here. All right. The amnesia is inflicted on us, but it's inflicted on us long before most of us realize it's at birth. Or even just before birth that they get a hold of us. Yeah. So they know. And why would they do that? Why would they go to the extent of grabbing us at birth? Because we do know when we come in. This idea, see, I bet, Mike, do you have strong opinions about reincarnation? I'll bet you do.
Well, I am a spiritual regressionist.
So you do.
I know a lot about it. If anybody's interested in asking, I'll give you my opinions.
Yeah. So Mike's a great person to have this conversation with because I know that he's not only does he have experience with it, but he's got firm opinions about it, and he's also open enough to toss it around a little bit. Yeah. So I am too, as you know, my spiritual base long ago was anthroposophy, and that's all about reincarnation and all of that stuff. Yeah. But now that we've got this idea of soul traps out there and all of that, right?
Yeah.
We don't know what the hell's going on with that. So I know who I was in my last life. All right. But I was 50 before I consciously allowed myself to really know that materially. Okay. All right. But that's for me to know, and nobody else is, who else could care less, right? Nobody could care less. Right. But I used to believe the amnesia we faced at birth was a good thing. It's like the party line, so that we could exercise free will every second of every day. And we had this chance to make the right decision to go on our path as long as we lived it. I'm not so sure I believe that anymore, Mike, because of the assault on us from conception and right out of the birth canal. You know, I tend to think that eternal memory, which is probably basic to our being, is just slapped right out of us. You know, not, yeah. So we're supposed to have that. And then you add a thing like circumcision, and a boy's universal memory is just shocked right into a little corner of his mind. Maybe the first secret space, as in the secret space program, right? Preoccupied, indeed. Preoccupied, right? Poor little, anyway, poor babies. But anyway, even as adult-like beings, it's a task of the whatever you want to call it, like the Illuminati, shall we call them that? That's not what they call themselves. I'm given to understand, but nobody clued me in as to what they actually do call themselves. Anyway, it's their task to shock ourselves out of our physical body so we can be used like sock puppets. Did people know that?
No, people don't know that. It's, the contamination of the physical body begins as soon as the baby is born. And you're absolutely right that coming into the world before you're born, you have, you know why you're coming in. You know what your objectives are and your goals are. Now, that's not to say that you don't get to achieve those goals and those objectives, but you are coming into a world that by design is designed to disconnect you from source. And that disconnection from source means that we're going to have all of the challenges that we are presented with in this life. When we come into this world, we come here, it is a school, and we are learning what it's like to try to achieve the developmental goals of our soul in a physical arena that is extremely challenging and tries to keep us from achieving those goals. So what that means is that there has to be a tremendous level of discipline by each person to go within and ensure that they reconnect back to the divine, back to the creator source, however you want to put a name on God and so on. That is what we're really supposed to be doing, because most people look at their life only from a physical aspect, yet you are comprised of both physical and non-physical.
Yeah.
When we get here, you are taught that the only thing that matters is your physical being, and nobody really ever talks about the non-physical, the spiritual, the metaphysical piece of it. And if you do want to talk about that, we'll send you off into some institutionalized religion.
Yeah, right.
Where we can tell you that that's where you're going to get that piece of it. And you just need to show up on Sunday for an hour once a week, and you're good. But it's a lot more than that. I can go on this topic forever and ever. But the point I'm trying to make is that it's both physical and non-physical, and you have got to pay attention to the spiritual aspects of yourself and who you really are if you expect to really accomplish what it is you came to accomplish. Because if you don't, then you're going to not meet your goals and your objectives, plain and simple.
And I have to tell you, it just came to it comes to my mind every once in a while. I was told long ago when my children were little that this little indent in your lip, your upper lip, that's from the angel doing this to you just before you're born, so you forget everything. That pisses me off now. I used to think, aw, that's so cute. The angel takes your memory. Excuse me? The angel takes your memory? That's not helping you accomplish what you came here to accomplish. That's setting you back like 1 billion years. This eternal memory, I don't think we're meant to lose that when we come in. I just don't think that's the case.
You don't lose it though, Cara. You don't lose it. The thing is, you have to learn how to tap into it. That's the thing. So you can tap into that eternal memory. People call it the Akashic Records. It's in the ether or whatever. But you're not going to tap into it based upon the disciplines that you are taught when you come into this world. The disciplines that are taught when you're born and as you progress through your life are going to make sure that they keep you from doing that.
Yes, right.
Okay? So somebody who has a very disciplined spiritual practice, does a lot of meditation, past life regressions, between life regressions, this is work that I do, they will be able to plug back in. And by plugging back in, you will have recall of past lives. You will be able to connect back to the higher realms and receive messages and to receive the wisdom and insight from your divine guidance. There's no question about it. I've been doing this a long time, and it's how it
Mm-hmm.
works. But the thing is, most people look at that stuff and just poo-poo it. It's like, that's just nonsense.
Right.
And that's why they go around their life banging into things all the time.
Exactly.
Seriously,
I know. I know.
because they're missing that insight.
I know. The one other thing that we should pick apart a little bit here while we're on the subject is that because there's this whole revelation of soul traps and things like that, and that's not where you choose. That is not where you make decisions in that arena. Okay, that's not where you go and then you make decisions about what you're supposed to do next time based on how crappy or good your last life was, blah, blah, blah. That's where you inhabit that is a much higher plane. Okay, so you can say that you between lives have made evaluations, have made, determined where you want to go next and all of that. But then as soon as you're headed this way into this incarnation, you're fighting off all this haunting. That's what it is. It's all being haunted. Also, before we move really quickly, Mike, I know you have something to say. I can see it. Did you know that one of the ways, unfortunately, that they knock you out of your body, people who have been intimately connected to the Illuminati tell me this point blank. It's alcohol,
Yes.
which is a shame because I love wine and I love beer, but it's like 4 days before your spirit actually comes back into your body. Do you know what I mean? They count on that. It's alcohol, which brings me to, why did Jesus turn the water into wine, Mike? Why? Why, Santa Claus? Why?
Probably because Jesus liked some wine. I think it's all done in moderation, Cara. It's first of all, the reason why I wanted to say something was this whole thing on soul traps. I just want to make a comment on that, okay? Because this is something I mentioned this on a previous show. I think it was on the Charlie Freak show. Charlie and I talked about it for a little bit. There is this meme going around in the truth community, people talking out of their shorts about our souls are trapped, that we just keep recycling through and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And there is nothing that is further from the truth than that. Your soul is not trapped, folks. Okay? It is not trapped. The physical world does not have control over the spiritual world. It does not. All right. You come here, as I mentioned before, to incarnate into this physical existence in order to experience whatever it is that you need to experience in order for your soul to develop further. Okay, I'll just leave it at that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the soul trap, if there is one, is because of you.
Okay.
Not because of somebody controlling you or whatever. It's because of you. So as an example, if you come here and you do not learn your lessons and you do not have that metaphysical or spiritual disciplines in place, what's going to happen is if you walk through your whole life fat, dumb, and happy, and you're not doing any kind of spiritual work, no inner work, you're not trying to understand the truth, then you're going to have to come back again, reincarnate, back into this realm, and you're going to have to do it all over again. And you're going to have to do it until you get it. Now, to the degree that you understand what is truth, so if you learn an inch of truth, your soul takes that with it. So when you cross over, and the next time you have some learning, some lessons, you're going to have that much more opportunity open to you, additional opportunity to explore other types of experiences, existences, and stuff like that. Okay? Now, if you learn a lot about what this realm is about, then you're going to have a lot more opportunity open to you when it comes time to come back down to reincarnate or to have other learning experiences, because souls have learning experiences outside of reincarnating.
Yeah.
If you learn nothing and you're just going through life, just banging around, as I said when I first started this little spiel here, you're going to come back and you're going to have to keep doing it until you start to learn something. You see, that is the trap. But that trap is set by you.
Right.
That's you not breaking out. That's you not opening your mind. That's you not exploring, not using your imagination, not using your creativity. That's you. So, and that's why I get very annoyed when I hear these people going on there have no idea what they're talking about. I'm not even going to say just the truth community or the alternative research community, but that new age community too.
Yeah.
Talking about soul traps and crap like that.
Yeah.
Your soul is not trapped. It is not.
Yeah, I don't see how it can be. The soul, the higher self, this is way beyond anything that can be. That's what they can't get a hold of, really. That and your heart mind frequency, which they can't even see. But the one thing I do want to stick in here, my friend, because you know I'm going to do this no matter what we're talking about. The opposite of what the effect of alcohol is what? It's cannabis. Cannabis protects you. It protects you from having that kind of thing done to you. Another reason they wanted to get rid of it. Oh my God, they could not get rid of that fast enough, right? Because it is our primary nutrient and our major friend. So, okay.
But you know what, Cara? I just want to say you're absolutely right. But alcohol, drugs, those types of things, they damage the mind-body connection.
They do. They do.
They damage it, and it will damage your aura. It will damage your spiritual energy. And so if you're engaged in that stuff, then you're going to have problems.
Yeah.
You're going to have a lot of issues. And again, I know this show is not about that. I don't want to steer this in a purely metaphysical direction, but you're absolutely 100% right when you talk about, and we're talking about abuse.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not talking, somebody has some wine or whatever, that's fine. But we're talking about people that are really hung up on vices, which, by the way, includes vices like porn. Just want to throw that in there.
Any addiction, it's a haunting.
Any addiction.
It's a haunting.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So yeah, that was like the big question for me is what did I originally come here to do? I'd like to figure that out. I'd like to find out. And I think that if I clear my mind enough, if I work hard enough on getting my own thoughts back, intuitively, I can meet that little person again and see what was it I came here to do again? Because apparently they've been keeping us all from doing that, right?
Yes.
Okay. So what's the first question, Mike? Let's go back to that. What's the first question we ask? Because we are talking about this in relationship to the alternative community, the truther community, right? I'm looking for the question now because I want to.
What kind of personality joins the community?
Yeah. Who, what, where, why, when, how? Okay. First of all, how old would you say the alternative community is? How long have we been doing this?
Well, that's interesting. It was around, with the JFK assassination, but I would say it has really grown since 9/11. I would say that 9/11 was probably where it exploded. Of course, it was around with the JFK assassination. It was around with the moon landings and stuff like that. But I would say that it was probably very, very small compared to what it is today. 9/11 was probably the turning point.
Okay. So 20 years, not quite 20 years, I guess.
Yeah. We'll call it 20 years.
Yeah, let's say 20 years, just for the sake of ease. Okay. And I'm not so sure that I actually asked that question in a fair way. Okay. I said, what kind of personality? That kind of makes it seem like an illness, doesn't it?
Yeah. But I knew what you meant.
I never want to go there. That's not
what kind of diseased person does this?
Yes. I don't really want to set it up that way. In our first question, I don't want it to be that way for sure. Who joins? Why? What are the characteristics of that person? At least initially, what's the goal? This is a big question. So I think the only thing maybe, like Mike, when did you join? Why did you join? How did you join?
I would say that for me, it probably started around 2006. So let's just say about 12 years ago. And it was a very evolutionary type of process, but I had gone through some personal challenges. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
I had to look in the mirror and take stock in where I was going with my life. And so, thank God I had that moment because it was at that time where a lot of things I started to become aware of. I started to become aware that the reality that we were operating in, that there was something very wrong with it and something very peculiar.
Right.
And that's how it kind of evolved for me. So, but it was a very incremental, methodical process, Cara. I would focus on one thing, understand it to the degree that I felt comfortable with, and then I would move on to something else and so on.
Mm-hmm.
just led to, where I'm at today. And I'm still in that process, by the way, because there's just so many things to learn.
Right. Right.
So that was how it worked for me.
What was your first cause?
My first cause was the moon landings, I believe. I got to the point where I just thought to myself, that whole thing just seems so hokey, We landed on a moon in that thing, So,
Wait a minute.
And,
isn't that aluminum foil? Yeah.
Yeah. Seriously, I was looking at that and I'm like, but I was struggling with, well, why would they lie about that? It was man's greatest achievement and all that. But I think the icing on the cake for me was 9/11.
Yeah.
It was 9/11.
I know.
Because initially I bought into the storyline.
Yeah.
And then after that, and don't ask me how I veered off the official storyline road.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow I did.
Yeah.
And once you do, you never go back.
You can't go back.
You see it.
No.
You just see it.
It's all there.
Yeah. So it was the moon landings. Well, when I was a kid, I was very interested in the JFK assassination. I was a weird little kid. I was buying books. I read this book called Executive Action, and it was all about the conspiracy. But I always knew something was really wrong with the Kennedy assassination. But did I really dig into it other than knowing that it was a lot more than Lee Harvey Oswald? Yes, but I didn't dig into it. But then the moon landings really piqued my interest, and then 9/11.
Yeah. Okay, I bet you a lot of people will say the same thing. Maybe not the moon landings. They might switch that because sometimes the moon landings come later for people. Yeah. Because it's easier to understand that JFK was assassinated than that. What? We didn't land on the moon. What the hell's wrong with you? It's hard to take that away from us, right? But eventually it does get taken away. Okay, so. Okay, and maybe it's and like I said, I'm trying to be methodical about this. So I'll tell you how I got into it. You actually kind of know. You already know, but you don't know the whole picture because I'm going to paint a real picture for you. Mom died. Mom was killed. Yeah, you know this. It ended up being the book The Sun Thief. That was an extraordinarily difficult book for me to write. Okay, it was a bitch and it hurt. And I was scared because back in 2010, 2011, it's still dangerous to talk about this. Not now, but it was then, right? And so what I would do, I'm going to say this, guys, because I feel very familiar with everybody, is every morning I would get up. My kids were in high school. I would go across the street to the grocery store. I'd buy a little 8x8 frosted cake. Okay, seriously. I would bring it back to my desk. And I would munch that cake as I wrote The Sun Thief because that was the only way I could soothe the emotions that were not going anywhere. Okay, I'm a typical person. I'm not aberrant in any way. There are millions and millions of people who handle stuff like that. This was the first time I think that I had done it with cake, frosted cake. Anyway. I did not get past that incident very easily. It was because of the way she died. I just wasn't turning a corner, Mike. And so I ended up being extremely fortunate in that I hooked up with a woman. Somebody introduced me to a woman in Northern California who was an extraordinarily deep initiate. And she actually saved my life. She helped me get through to the other side of that by literally talking to me about 10 hours a day online for weeks, while I wrote the book, while I ate my cake, while I did all of these things. This is how we get through stuff, guys. I mean, it can be really crazy. It can be really silly, but this is kind of how it happens sometimes. Now, I ended that relationship being beyond grateful to that woman, and I will always say that she saved my life. But I knew because of her power, because of the elemental nature of her power, that it was as if there was something on an island that I wanted. I could see it. It was the prize. It was the goal. But there was like this moat around the island, and there was a shark swimming in the moat, and she was the shark. And in order to get to that island, to get to that prize, I was going to have to swim with sharks. And that's kind of this is the truther community for me. For me, that's a metaphor sometimes of what we're doing. We're kind of dancing with some demons to get to the truth. We're kind of swimming with some sharks to get to the truth. Am I right? I mean, yes. And we know we're doing it. And mostly it's worth it. And then it gets to the point where it's not worth it because you know that shark's just about to bite you. You're just about to be, and if you're lucky, you can get out of the water, that kind of thing. Okay, but you know what I was remembering today? And the reason I was remembering this in the last few days is because I've seen some of the people that I admire the most in the truther community looping. And these are people who've talked about looping. You know what I mean? But
what's looping?
Well, you go back to something that is so old, and it's like the reset button, dude. You start over and you go, no, come on, no, you're not really. The loops, or maybe it's like the trajectory of the planet Pluto. Maybe it's so long that you don't see the loop when it comes back around. But I've seen one of the things that's really worried me lately is I've seen a lot of people I respect starting to loop. So what are they being haunted by, Mike? What's driving them if that's the case? I don't think.
So are you saying that they're rethinking or they're questioning themselves or doubting themselves?
No, that'd be okay. That'd be great. No, they're just representing material. Like
rehashing stuff.
Yeah, it's like discovering the same thing every day because
I got it. Okay.
The eternal sunshine of the whatever mind. Do you remember that? You know,
yeah.
It's like 50 first dates. It's like, you know, and I've been kind of surprised, but for me, it's been pretty worrisome because I have to wonder what's going on. It's part of the fracturing. What's driving them? Am I doing that? For God's sake, self-reflect when you see stuff like this, because, you know, but okay. So what I was trying to say is the reason I picked up on that is because I remember that first year after Mom died, I was on a crusade about the bees. Do you remember when the movies first started coming out? I mean, I rented halls and I bullied people into coming to see the movie, you know, and I did a raffle and gave away t-shirts. I mean, I did this. I changed my license plate to say bees. I did that stuff. And it has been talked about in the alternative community as it should be, in conjunction with all kinds of other things like Monsanto and, you know, monoculture, all of the things that should be talked about in conjunction with. But I just saw somebody hit the reset button on that one. And you can tell, I know you guys know what I mean. It's not like a continuation of the conversation. It's a complete reset. Oh, by the way, did you know there's something wrong with the bees, Mike? And you go, yeah, I think we all do. Anyway, regardless, so I've been seeing a lot of looping lately. And so, that's worrisome for me. That's worrisome for me because I have to wonder what's driving people. And then I think when we see stuff like that, we always have to have a look at ourselves. Don't be like it's everybody else and not me. You know, you have to have an idea. Have a look at yourself and see if you're doing the same things. So let me see. Okay, so that doesn't answer the question though. It gives you an idea where I started. It gives Mike an idea. You an idea where Mike started. I started in a little bit more crazy place than Mike did, but I'm here. Here I am now. The evolution that happens to all of us inevitably as we go through the years on this stuff and we talk about it. Okay, but what would have been, okay, Mike, let me ask you another question. What was your goal? Did you have a goal when you started this, or were you just sucked in by the intrigue of the whole thing?
I can't say I had a goal. I just had this feeling, this sense that I had to communicate information out. So as an example, like I started like a lot of people originally, you know, I was watching InfoWars and I was reading David Icke's books and stuff like that, you know, very early on. You know, I look at that as kind of the foundational types of information that we first get into it because it's a process of discovery, right? And so what happens is like I don't listen to InfoWars at all anymore, and
right.
You know, I mean, and God bless David Icke. He's been doing what he's been doing a long time, but I haven't read a David Icke book in a long time either,
right?
Because you move on, type of thing, right? But that's how I started, and then you know, once I got this information and it started to resonate with me, I felt, well, you know, other people need to know about this.
There you go, yeah.
Right? Other people need to know about the fact that they're spraying the skies or that vaccines are doing this and doing that.
Right.
People need to know about GMO and all that. So that's what happened. And so, you know, I started by just doing the blog. I think I started the blog. It's pretty old now. I would say 2010, 11, around there. And then the radio show is is like 4.5 years old or whatever.
Right.
But that's how I got started, Cara. I can't say that I had an objective. I just had this compulsion to want to get the word out on things
Right.
that I was learning.
To warn people.
To warn people. And I
Yeah.
also found out that I was very naive. I thought that people would be like, holy smokes, Mike, thank God you showed up, you know?
I know. I had the same thing, man.
Instead, I bumped up against most people looking at me and telling me I was a crackpot.
If they got that far, right?
Yeah, and just to and didn't want to hear it, didn't want to listen to it, you're weird. And
Right.
that was something that was a big learning curve when you realize that not everybody, and I'm talking about people that you believe that friends and family that you thought were going to have open minds and would want to learn about this stuff, or at the very least, dialogue on it.
Right.
I found out, no, that was completely wrong.
Isn't that an interesting moment? Yeah.
Yeah.
You think, oh man, all I got to do is tell people about this and it is over. It is so
Yeah, they'll
over.
get it.
It is so over. We're going to put a stop to this. Oh my God. Anyway, I'll say nobody gives a shit because it's more complex than that. It's really more complex than that because it's this haunting thing. It's this haunting thing, and I'm interested not necessarily anymore in why people out there don't give a shit, because I think we've figured that out. We've written about it, we've researched it, we know the traps, we know the addictions, we know the television, we know the frequency issues, we know 5G now, which is going to melt everybody's bones. We know all this stuff, okay? So because we know all this stuff, the community that I'm kind of interested in right now is the truther community, the community that's at to one degree or another in the know. We're all flawed in our understanding or our delivery, or because we're human beings, or where we're at any given moment, we get sidetracked, our egos get stroked. That's a big one. Oh, yeah, you're right. I am a genius. You know what I mean? I know what I'm talking about. Yeah. That's a bad one, guys. That's a bad one. Don't ever walk into that one, dudes. Just always doubt yourselves, please.
Well, the unfortunate thing is there are a lot of people out there in the truther community that have that ego.
Yep.
And they think that they are God's gift to the community. So, and you're right, Cara, if you ever get there's something terribly wrong, because there's so much to learn, there's so much to explore and discover, and to think that you've hit the zenith or the apex of knowing, it's just ridiculous by itself.
Right. So we have Michael and me, because we're the only people we were really the only people we should talk about, because we're here, and we have both discussed the fact that we absolutely hate doing interviews. Right? Am I right?
Right.
Yeah. It's hard. You guys, it's so hard. I've gotten used to it. I have people I prefer to talk to, and Mike's one of them. And I'm always like, Mike, can I see you, please? Because it's really so much more fun if I can see your face when I'm talking to you. It becomes like a conversation. But just to spend your whole life looking to be interviewed because you've got a book out and blah, 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 that's really tough, man. It's really tough.
Well, I'm introverted, Cara, by nature. That's the thing.
Yeah.
People, they think because you do a radio show and that you're extroverted or that you like talking and you like putting yourself out there. And the truth of the matter is that not really.
No.
I like my privacy. I am an introverted person. I can be very happy just occupying my time, doing my little projects, whatever it may be. So yes, like you, I've had to learn to do this.
Yeah.
And you are a lot more comfortable with certain people because they're your friends. Like when you and I speak, it's not like I'm doing an interview. It's like you and I are just talking, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And there are others that I would say there's probably a handful of people that over the last 4.5 years that, I have interviewed or that I had some interaction with regard to the radio show.
Right.
That I feel genuinely very comfortable with. And it comes across, too, I think, in the radio show because it is it's conversational.
Right.
But, if I had my druthers.
right.
And I'd have to do this work, I wouldn't.
That's the thing. That's the thing. Would you rather be on a beach Hell yes, I'd rather be on a beach. That's what people don't get. I'm not doing this because it's like slathering,
I love it. Yeah.
slathering love potion all over myself. I'd much rather just be hanging out on a beach doing my own thing, wondering what my kids are doing. Anyway,
Right.
I learned this lesson when The Sun Thief came out. I'd written this book. I knew this book was super important. And then I was like, okay, so now what? Now what? Well, you know what? Nobody knows about this. Nobody gives a shit about it. You got to make them care. You know what I mean? And that's when I started the work of becoming an activist. The work of becoming an activist. And so why did you do it? We asked that question. Why did I do it? The first I did it for my mom. Yeah. Because I knew she'd given me this piece of work and she wanted me to tell people about it. She wanted people to know about it. Okay. She gave it to me. Go, tell, do, be. That was the marching orders, Yep. That's my haunting, guys. All right. Think about that. My mom is always with me in some way, especially when I'm talking about chemtrails. I know that. Frankly, I'm happy about that. I miss her every day. Okay. Even though she was a giant chore of a woman. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there's that. Okay. And then when I realized what was really going on, I realized that my children had been sentenced to a not necessarily so slow poisoning grisly death, and not too far in the future. And I love my children. And this is not what I had in mind for them. It's not, and I doubt if it's what they have in mind for themselves. And they can't quite believe what's going on right now, because that would be too overwhelming for them as they try to get on their feet as young adults. So I've got to believe for them till they can believe themselves, Mike, till they're ready to take on the mantle of really believing and really understanding what's going on. So I'll do it for them until they can do it for themselves. This is parenting anyway, right?
Yeah, it's a process.
It's a process.
It's a process.
Yep.
There's no question about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but I, like you, thought once I just put this little bit of stuff out about the chemicals in the air, that's all there is to it. That is not all there is to it. Nobody cares. Very few people care. So you have to, at that point, you have to have people that you care enough about to want to continue running with the torch, or you have to be a little bit of enjoy being a little bit of a tattletale, which I do.
Who do you tattletale on?
Right? It's like, do you know what they're doing? Anyway, there's a bit of that, I think, in all of us. But you do expect a response from everyone to try to stop whatever it is that's going on. Because when I use the word tattletale, that really demeans the importance of the things that we're talking about. I'm just joshing. With you. So what's the other side of that coin? There are people who do enjoy the attention, Mike. There are people who slather it up, baby.
They love it. Well, it's the whole celebrity complex, right?
Mm-hmm.
They want to be a celebrity. They want to be a brand. They want to be well known. They want to be a leader. They want to be the go-to person, so we see a lot of that.
Oh my God. And they are really wannabe cult leaders in my view. A lot of them. They can do that on the social media. They can, because people aren't, in their sphere, their physical space, to see the foibles, to see the reality, to see that they actually go to the bathroom and, stuff like that. But they can go and they can be wannabe cult leaders. They can be gurus. They want followers. They want to spout their stuff, and they don't want to be argued with. They want people to be like, oh yeah, that's it. That's the way. There's too much of that going on. So, what kind of, are you being, okay, is that an alternative person being haunted? It's also an alternative person haunting. Okay? Let's talk about the things that we bring with us. Let's talk about the things from our childhood. Let's talk about the things that drive us that we have no idea are driving us, right? I often talk about my mom with my friends, because she was a very complex person, and she and I together made a sort of a unit that seemed to have something to do. But I will also look at some of the stuff that her life was filled with, and know that she had no idea what was driving her. But do any of us?
Well, our life experiences are a huge, huge piece of who we are,
mm-hmm.
and why we do what we do, our behaviors and stuff like that. So you can't, you can never discount that. So depending upon what your life's been like, the kind of trauma that you had, whether it be physical or emotional, growing up as a kid, going into your teenage years, college, and so on, is going to have play a big part, I should say, in defining who you are as an adult as you move forward.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some people will cruise their whole life that way and carry a load or baggage that they really shouldn't, but the thing is, they don't realize that they can actually release that stuff.
Right. Right.
So it's when you have that awareness that you can release certain things that are holding you back in life, letting it go, that's where you can grow. But the issue becomes becoming aware of it, and that's not easy for a lot of people because, first of all, most people don't want to ever admit that there's something they need to work on.
Right. Right.
Right? There's nothing wrong with me. You. Right?
Absolutely. Yes. This is so often the melancholic personality in terms of my teacher training. It's everyone else's fault, actually. I'm just fine. Do you know what I mean? Oh my God, that just gets so old. But anyway, yes, so there's a lot of that going on.
Everybody has stuff to work on.
Everybody has stuff to work on, that's right. But your belly button's not the only belly button in town. Know what I mean?
Right.
So, okay. But now I'm thinking about the activist community. And I'm thinking about all of the things. Think about the list we just made, Mike, of stuff that drives you, that we know exists, whether it's internal demons, whether it's internal parasites, external parasites, external things we can't even see. I believe, because our visual spectrum is so limited, that there are probably things walking around outside us that we don't see constantly. People will tell you that giants still exist. They're walking around. We just can't see them. Why wouldn't I believe that, knowing how limited our visual spectrum is right now? And is that normal? Or is that a function of those drops they put in our eyes at birth? I know it makes me sound like a crazy person, but this is the kind of thing I think about because they are after us in such huge ways to limit us. Okay. What would our visual spectrum be? What would our oral spectrum be? What would we be without all the insane interference at birth physically? What would we be able to perceive? Perception is a big part of what they're trying to clamp down on, hence shrouding the sun, hence, so the list of things that we've put together that I want to put under the heading of haunting, and the community that I care about because they're influential amongst each other, and it's a fairly large community, the truther community, the activist community, because I see all this, okay, I'm trying to put a bunch of things together coherently. The splintering that I see, the ship that's at the bottom of the ocean and the wood that's floating on the surface and, the Escher staircase I just described. It's important to me to bring this up now in context of this community because I think we're becoming in many ways less self-aware, not more self-aware.
Yeah, it's, I would say that generally speaking, I agree with you 100%. Because there are people that have labeled themselves truth community and alternative research community that are not in it because they are genuine. They're in it for many other reasons. We mentioned a lot of them. It could be ego. It can be monetary.
Yep.
It could be because you like the attention, which I guess goes back to an ego aspect of it. There are those out there that are paid to be disruptive and to mislead. So you have many, many different types of people out there with, there's different variables that motivates them to be there and to turn out content, if you will. So that's why it's fractured. It's because the waters are polluted. They're very, very polluted and contaminated. And so it's a process for those that are really looking for the truth, to seek out people that resonate with them as being genuine and sincere, period. I mean, that's just the way it works. I mean, it's a process of going through that, separating out those that you come to understand are not in it for the right reasons, and to focus on and interact with those that are. This is one of the reasons why, Cara, my circle of friends within the truth community is very small.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just editorialize a little bit here. I've been asked to collaborate on certain things. I've been asked to join this community, that community. Hey, we really hit it off with the show. The show came out great. We should do a ton more shows and stuff like that. I push back on all of it. And it's not because I'm being an asshole and jerk. It's because I have realized over time that the best way for me to be able to control my message is for me to be in control.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because there are so many people out there that, and I'm not saying that they're being sneaky or deceptive.
Right.
But they may have different motives, different incentives. The one that really bugs me the most are the people that are out there that are saying that whatever it is that they're focused on is by far the most important thing that needs to be focused on.
Right, yeah.
So if you're not talking about what I'm talking about, or if you're not on board with me, then you're completely missing the boat.
Yeah.
I can't stand that mentality because there are so many pieces to this puzzle. And that's why it's important that people explore different aspects and go into different areas of research, because one piece of research by itself is not going to grab everybody. I mean, you would think, as an example, 9/11 should grab most people, but it doesn't.
Right, yeah, right. I know.
And that's why you have to have, like the JFK, you have to have the moon landings, you have to have 9/11, you have to have vaccines, you have to have geoengineering, you have to have fluoride, you have to have all these things. Because depending upon what piques a person's particular interest in something, that's what's going to grab them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So for somebody to walk around saying that all of that stuff is less important than what I'm talking about.
Right.
I mean, it drives me crazy. And honestly, I just don't pay any attention to these people.
And it's unfortunate.
The absolute reverse happens.
You have to train. Well, if you're like me, maybe it's not this way for you, but if you're like me, you have to train yourself not to care about stuff like that. You have to train yourself to not pay attention to stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because it's literally painful for me. And I think it's because I quite like doing things with other people. I've got the Sagittarius moon, and it's all about happy-go-lucky groups and the things that come out of community and discussions and things like that. But I've almost had to give up on that in a way. There's a couple of things that, there's like that. I haven't been able to because people don't show up anymore. I'm getting ready to do a trip in September to the Untersberg, which you may or may not have heard of. It's most people outside. In fact, most Germans don't even know it exists, but it's kind of a magic mountain. It's one of those places where time anomalies occur and, and I'm really super excited because you don't get to a place like that without some kind of like the mountain inviting you. You know what I mean? It's not an accident. I'm going with Thomas Sheridan. And I invited him for a couple of days, knowing he was super, super busy. And he's going to come. And he's doing a lot of work to help me put it together, to promote it and all of that. And he was really the only person for the job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I have no doubt he's going to be on that airplane. Know what I mean? That's not the way it's going anymore, dude. That's not the way it's going anymore, unfortunately. And I think that what I think this is a function of, Mike, is people are finding themselves unable to come out from behind their screens.
Yeah.
Even the activists who should know better are now merged. Aren't we being merged with these screens in some way with this, with artificial intelligence via our computers? Isn't that sort of one of the postulates that's out there right now? Yeah. So this is a haunting as well. And so what I've decided to do, Mike, just because, last year was a painful year for me in terms of speaking. I still really like to get out in front of people where they're breathing and their hearts are beating and they can ask me questions and all that kind of stuff, even if it's just half a dozen people, And I think it's super important that we do that. So I had 4 things planned last year over this Christmas break that I went on to see my children, basically. 2 of them went down. 2 of them didn't go down. Okay, so that's 50-50. All right, whatever. One of them was in New Orleans, and there was this woman down there, this little firecracker of a chemtrail activist called Raphael O'Neill. You should have her on, actually. She has some theories about Nexrad and stuff. Okay. Oh my God. She's such a little firecracker, and she just killed herself to get things put together for me so that at least it was marginally worth it for me to come down there. And I had a blast. New Orleans is like a different planet. I don't know if you've ever been there, but it really is. It's like not.
I've never been there.
Oh my God. It's like not on this planet. Okay. Anyway. Okay. Anyway, people in Northern California also killed themselves to get me up there. I did a lecture for free because of the fires in Santa Rosa, and I relied on the workshop the next day to kind of help me break even, which of course it didn't. I do these things not knowing damn well I'm not going to make any money, hoping I can break even, cover my costs. I do it because I want to be out in front of people, and I think it's important that we keep that going. But what I found out this last year is it's almost a lost cause. So for me, I've made a pledge to myself, Mike, that I'm going to do one a year. I'm going to do one public thing every year, maybe for 3 people. Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm going to do it because I think if we give up on that 100%, we might as well just give up. You know?
Yeah.
I forced myself to do that, even though I know I'm not going to make any money at it. So anyway, but I do quite like working with people. It's just that in a way, AI is winning that battle, and that makes me sick. It makes me sick and it makes me sad. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think it's winning the battle. I look at it, I've changed my perspective a lot, Cara, over the years, and we're not going to have a mass exodus from this AI'd world. We're just not. I mean,
Right.
It's a controlled place. It's a controlled realm. That's the way it's supposed to be. When we incarnated here, it was, we understood that we were coming into this place and what it was all about.
Mm-hmm.
And I should say that I also subscribe to the ages, the Iron Age, the Bronze, the Silver, the Golden Age. Okay,
Yeah.
So Mother Earth goes through cycles, and we are in a cycle right now. We are in the Iron Age, and Martin Kenny and I are going to talk about this. In fact, Martin and I are connecting tomorrow to do some more work on this. And so we are in the Iron Age, and this is what the Iron Age is all about. And we're in the process, I should say right now, of transitioning into the Bronze. So things are going to get better. But the point I'm trying to make is that we are here to do as much table setting as we can as we go through this transition.
Yeah.
The table setting does not mean that we're going to have mass converts. Those that are ready are going to come on board, and those that are not ready, they're just going to take a lot longer as they go through this transition to get where they need to be. That's how I look at it. But there has to be it is a process. It is methodical. It is very incremental, and we're part of that methodical, incremental process.
Right.
As part of this shift, this transition from the Iron Age into the Bronze.
Right. Right.
That's how I look at it. So I look at it this way. I put the word out there based upon, the shows that I do or the blog.
Yeah.
And for those that have eyes and those that have ears, it will resonate with them. I shouldn't say attachment. People think of spirit attachments and stuff like that. It will resonate with them, and they can go wherever it is that they feel they need to go with it. I am not in the business of trying to evangelize and to convert people to whatever. I realized a long time ago, as I was telling you the story about friends and family that just rebuke you,
Yeah.
that it just does not work that way. So you have to do it because you feel it's the right thing to do. That's why I do it. That's why you do it. We know that in our hearts, we get up every morning. It's not something that I have to sit there and say, oh, I have to construct a reason as to why I'm still doing this. There's something innate within us that says, get up, do it.
Yeah.
And you just do it, and you keep marching forward.
Mm-hmm.
Is it frustrating?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it can be very frustrating. But like I said, once I've gotten to the point where I realize that, you know what, frustration is part of this process, and it's just it's a necessary part of what it is that we have to work through, then I just have to accept it. And I just keep going forward. I lose a lot less sleep these days because I realize that that's how it works. That's how it works.
Yeah.
Look, I have family members that have not listened to one show that I've ever done in 4.5 years.
Yes.
Not one.
I know. My kids never listen to me, which is actually fine. I'm kind of glad.
I guess the point I'm trying to make is that here are people that are very close to me, family functions, and so on. And I love them to death, and my family, brothers and sisters, mother and father. But that piece of my life, they don't bother with.
Right.
They just don't go there. They don't even talk about it.
Right.
They don't even say, hey, Mike, how are your radio shows? How's that?
Right.
No.
Right.
It's as if, it doesn't exist, so we just won't talk about it. Or if we don't talk about it, it doesn't exist. It's probably how I should say it.
Right.
It's a very weird dynamic. But again, that used to bother me years ago.
Yeah.
I've got to the point now, it's just like, hey, it just is what it is.
It is what it is. And it can be the people who are absolutely the closest to you, and they just unplug from what you're doing, man. They just don't want to know. They just don't want to know. So that used to tear me up. I no longer care. I just don't care. They're lost, Mike, really. The other thing I want to talk about, though, and maybe we should save it for another show and make it like a whole show. We can do it anywhere you want to. Your show, my show. I don't care. But I do have a friend in the community who has just been through the ringer with an activist. There's a lot of black magic going on in our community as well. And because everything's magic in my view. Yeah. There's nothing but magic. And these are people who are taking advantage of activists. This is haunting for sure. And so maybe we could save that and do like a whole thing on that, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I mean, it would kind of seg us off. I think it would seg us off this show, which has a feel, but it's also important, and it's going on, and people are taking advantage of other people on a monumental scale, and this is another way we have haunted activism.
Yeah, and the thing about magic is there's white magic and there's black magic, right? So magic is not, pulling a rabbit out of a hat or doing a card trick, right? It's the manipulation of the reality.
Yeah.
And based upon rituals that involve numbers, symbols, and so on. I mean, it's real. It's real.
Absolutely.
You can read the book by Manly P. Hall, The Secret Teachings of All Ages. Manly P. Hall talks about this, and it goes back to the mystery religion. So, again, there are going to be people that are just not going to believe it, and that's fine. If you don't believe it, you don't believe it. But it's out there, it exists, and it's a big part of what goes on in our reality.
The whole reality.
So, even just sigils as an example. I mean, they're all over the place. That's part of the whole process of magic. Mark Devlin and I have done a lot of work talking about the music industry and, what goes on, what's occulted there. That's all part of the magic.
Right.
So the point I'm trying to make is, yes, that's always going to be in play. But I will say this, for those that have done their inner work and those that are plugged in spiritually. Yeah. Okay. This magic stuff, especially the quote unquote black magic, will have no effect. It has no effect because you are protected from the standpoint of having that discipline, that spiritual discipline.
Yeah, you do have protection. Yeah.
You have protection. Okay. So that's very important to understand. I never worry about stuff like that because I know where I am at.
Right.
I know what I'm connected into. And so I don't get concerned about that stuff. I'm perfectly aware that it goes on.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. But I'm never concerned about it affecting me because of my disciplines.
Right.
Where I'm at.
Right.
It depends upon where you're plugged in. So if you're not plugged into the right place, then could black magic have an effect on you? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And black magic doesn't mean that, there's going to be pestilence and, and disease and all that stuff. It's as simple as controlling your mind and your consciousness.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. And that goes on. That's our existence, right?
Right.
Having your consciousness control,
right.
Your thinking, your thoughts are not your own.
Right, right.
We talk about mind control and social engineering. That's part of the magic.
Yeah. I would say too, and this just reminds me, thank you, that one of the things to be aware of when you're looking at social media groups is someone who sets themselves up to, on the one hand, hold on to people, and on the other hand, sort of denigrate anybody who would take people away from, you know what I mean? They have this group, and it could be huge, really, but it's theirs. It's theirs. And anybody that they perceive as a threat to their territory, it shouldn't be like that. You know what I mean? Even people who don't have anything to do with them. Do you know what I mean? But they perceive them as a threat, so they go after them, and they're constantly going after them. This is very black.
Yeah, and I just and an analogy. It's an analogy. It's not into black magic, but I think it illustrates exactly what you're saying. So just for the audience, I am a geocentrist. I don't like the term flat earther. Okay, and I've done a lot of work and had discussions with Martin Kenney about his cosmic egg theory, which I find it to be extremely fascinating. Cara is not a geocentrist.
Right.
She has a different perspective, but we don't allow that to get in the way of our friendship. Nope. We don't allow that to get in the way because we have a different viewpoint on something. I mean, what does that mean? Does that mean that we should sit there and throw rocks at each other and attack each other and sever a friendship because of a difference? I mean, it's ridiculous. And what you were saying, Cara, that's what it reminded me of, because you see that. It's like, it goes back to what we were saying before. Well, if you don't believe what I believe, then, you're an idiot.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And there's all of this attacking that goes on, and this disparaging, and this lack of civil discourse. And it's horrible.
Yeah.
And, so look, people are going to not be on the same page on things, but you have to look at the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Cara and I, even though we might not agree on heliocentrism versus geocentrism, the goal line is the exact same thing at the end of the day, which is to make this place a better place.
Mm-hmm. To find the truth, whatever that turns out to be.
We might have different paths or different things that we're looking at to get there, but we're both looking to get to the same place at the end of the day.
Right.
And this is something that really bothers me.
Right.
It really, really bothers me that goes on in the community, Cara.
And me too. Because I can look at my friendship with Mike and think, oh my God, what would I lose if I let something like that get him in the way?
It's stupid.
It would be a huge loss. I mean, it's really, for me, no different than having a different perspective on astrology or, So, no, we just don't talk about it because it's like, okay, we know we're on different pages, and so what?
Yeah, and it's not even avoiding it. It's just that I know where you're at, you know where I'm at, but there's so many other things to talk about. Why would we spend our time arguing about something that we don't see eye to eye on? Why would you do that?
Nope.
Talk about the stuff that, but we have common ground.
Exactly. So I think for me, it's a good example of how to handle stuff. Somehow we've managed to do it. And it's just because we don't think it's worth losing what we would lose in the friendship to go after that particular issue. Nope.
Right. It's silly.
Yeah, it's silly. Absolute silliness. I do want to try, and folks who are out there, I know some of you are deeply interested in this last thing that we were talking about. I'm going to remind Mike until he actually has time to talk to me about that, one way or the other. And as you can see, this concept of the fully haunted activist, man, oh man, I think still think we've just touched the surface.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we've talked for a while.
There's a lot of dynamics, and, people are just people. And, they have different motivations, they have different incentives and different reasons as to why they do things, why they don't do things, Yeah, it's very complex. That's why even the thought that you can have a cohesive community of anything is really not realistic in my view.
Right.
It's just not realistic. Humans being humans, I don't care how enlightened you think you are or how awakened you are going to have differences.
Yeah.
You're going to have feelings and emotions, and there's going to be, and people are going to separate off into camps. I mean, that's just the reality of the world in which we live in.
Right. And I'm aware right now that those camps are shifting big time, fast and furious right now. So I'm just kind of like, what's happening? I'm just going to sit here in my little space and this is always good advice, sit there and let the whirlwinds whirl around you until it blows itself out,
Let the smoke settle.
And see what's left afterwards, right?
I've done that, Cara, with certain things would pop up, like events, staged events as an example, and people will want to chime in right away before any facts are known.
Yeah.
Just another example folks, right? And they would come to me and they would say, we need to do a show on this like right now because, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no. I'm like, what do you mean no? I said, well, let me see. It happened like about 6 minutes ago. Okay. And so we need to let the smoke settle and get the lay of the land and gather as much facts as we possibly can to have an intelligent discussion. Because if you shoot from the hip and you jump into something too soon, you are going to shoot yourself in the ass. There is no doubt about it. You will shoot yourself in the ass.
Yes.
And then you're going to wind up looking like a dummy and you're going to have to backtrack. And who wants to be put in that position? I don't want to be put in that position.
Yeah.
This is hard enough without, like I said, shooting from the hip.
Yeah. I think if you do a show because you're pissed off, you got a 6-minute show. And then you're done. Once you're done ranting and raving, what are you going to say?
Yeah.
You got nothing. You got nothing. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm actually kind of done unless you have something else.
No, I'm good. It was a very good conversation.
Yeah.
I think I'm hoping the audience enjoys it because it was very frank.
Yeah. It was very frank. But no names were named.
No, and there's no reason to name names,
No.
I did a video recently on Facebook and I said that I was talking a little bit about the state of the truth community and the alternative research community and I said that there's so many characters out there.
Uh-huh.
You got the ones with the egos.
Yeah.
You have the ones that are very needy, very high maintenance, which is kind of like weird,
Yeah.
You have adults that are just it's almost this arrested, developed type of behavior.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's okay to talk about this stuff. I think it needs to be talked about.
Yeah.
Because we're not the only two.
No. We have. I mean, we
that is seeing
at
this.
this point we don't have a choice anyway, because otherwise everything is just it's circling the drain.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And some people might agree or disagree with whatever it is we talked about.
All right.
That's okay too. I don't
That's
care,
all right. You turned off your comments. I'm cool with that.
You know why? Let me talk about that a little bit. Why I turn off comments.
Yeah.
The reason why I turn off comments is because the whole commenting piece of it is also it's conditioning. It's social engineering. It's conditioning to make people believe that they have a right to say whatever it is they want to say and attach themselves to whatever it is they want to say to your vehicle, to your content, right?
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is you do have a right to say whatever it is you want to say, but it doesn't mean that people have to listen to you.
No, bingo.
Bingo, right?
Yeah.
And if you think that you have such important things to say, then what you need to do is you need to go start up your own radio show, have your own YouTube channel, your own blog, your own website, write your own book, whatever it may be. This is very interesting. I had little Nick. I call him Little Nick. He's 16 years old.
Yeah.
Nick Shylock, he did the Paul is Dead thing.
Yeah.
The kid is he's been researching it since he was 10. He's 6 years old.
Yeah.
I love Nick, right?
Yeah.
So he was on another show. Another host invited him on. So I was, just on a lark, I went through the comments. And this one person, this really illustrates, epitomizes where this culture and the mindset is at. This person writes, I can't believe this kid is wasting his time on the McCartney Paul is Dead thing. Why doesn't he invest his time in the JFK assassination? I'm looking at this. Well, I thought to myself, well, first of all, why don't you go research the JFK assassination?
There you go.
Dumbass.
Yeah.
Why are you picking on this 16-year-old kid
Right.
that, he decided that he wants to look into this? But you see how that works?
I do.
People are always looking for somebody else to go do something for them.
Yeah.
They're always looking for somebody else to go do the heavy lifting, somebody else to go do the coordinating.
Mm-hmm.
This is, it's unbelievable. So the reason why I don't have the comments is because I want to keep the focus of the show on the guests and the discussion. Because part of this conditioning is to have people underneath that to undermine the message by making it a total circus.
Right.
Because they have people, paid trolls, that go in there and they want to stir up the pot, stir the shit and take away from the message. And I won't allow that.
Right.
And I always tell folks, I'm not hiding. I'm easy to find.
Right.
If you have something to say, email me.
Mm-hmm.
You can find me. I'm not I'm not hard to find.
Right.
So I'll get off that
That soapbox. Well, we all have our favorite ones. And frankly, I think that if we have a soapbox, it's because that soapbox has been built by people, in the comment section. It's legit. It's absolutely legit. My pet peeve is shading. My pet peeve is shading. If I put something up on my page there, it's important, something just came out, or I'm making an announcement of some sort. For a long time, I can guarantee you the next thing that would be in the comment section was a video from somebody else on a slightly different subject, so that everybody was drained off looking at what I just said or what I was promoting. Do you see? I mean, and it took me forever to get people to stop doing that. And even now I have to, every once in a while, say, what's your business? If your business is dresses and you say, hey, I just made this great new dress, here's a picture of it. And then I put a bunch of pictures from Glamour magazine of other people's work right under it. What would you think of me? What would you think of, what would I be trying to say? Anyway, so if you can give them, examples that they can understand, it tends to work that way. Lately, I've gotten a couple of private messages where I've put something up that is clearly important to me. I don't want anybody to shade it. And I'll get a private message that says, I know you don't like it when people do this, so I sent it here. And I say, great, fantastic, exactly right.
Right. Well, the other thing I was going to talk about was, I know we said that we were out of things to say, but we have things to say. Is the thing that always gets me is people that will watch an entire or listen to an entire show and just be infuriated by whatever it is that was being discussed. And I'm thinking to myself, like, at what point did you decide that you didn't like it? Was it at the very end? Why were you listening to that? Why are you listening to stuff that does not float your boat? Why would you do that? I mean, that has to be some kind of psychosis. To sit there for an hour or 2 hours and to listen to something and just get yourself all twisted, bent out of shape, infuriated, and just beside yourself.
Yeah.
Just what's that about?
Actually, that brings because I try to be try to be egoless when it comes to this stuff. But there's a comment on the interview I did with you and Devlin not too long ago. Somebody had watched it and said, this woman, she just doesn't know what she's talking about. She just sits there and listens to them, or she just says something every once in a while. I don't know why.
Or are you the host?
Yes. I don't even know. I don't even know why she's on there, because those two know so much more than she does. I was like, okay.
Yeah, I was the host. Knock, knock. Yeah. Anybody home?
It's not my job to blow my guests out of the water if I could.
Exactly.
Which I couldn't on that subject. So, yeah, it was really funny. So you never know what you're going to get. But anyway, okay, Michael. I love talking to you, and I love it when it works on Skype.
Yeah, no, it was great. We had no blips or anything. So
no gremlins, no nothing.
The gods were looking down on us.
They were.
So very good.
They were.
Yeah.
Okay. Edit.
All right. So I'll have it out as soon as I can. Give me about a week or so. I'll have it out. All right. Okay. All right. Come on.
All right. Okay.
All
Bye,
right.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And that concludes another Sage of Quay interview, and I hope you enjoyed the discussion as much as I did. Links to my guests' websites and social media are listed in the show notes below. And as always, I'd like to thank everyone for listening and visiting the blog. You can get to the blog by typing in sageofquayradio.blogspot.com or simply head over to our hub website at sageofquay.com. Also, if you get a moment, please visit laboroflovemusic.com to listen to my album, Leaving Dystopia. And remember, live in truth and always serve creation. It's really that simple. See everyone next week. Be safe, enjoy, and God bless.
Hey there, brother, take a look around. Does it bother you that the world is upside down? Can't you see? You're not free. Hey there, sister, look out your door. Does it bother you when your child goes to war? Can't you see? in the rain? Does it bother you that you never took the blame? Can't you see? You're not free. Hey there, mother, time is passing by. Does it bother you if a child doesn't fly? Can't you see? You're not free. Hey there, stranger, have you lost your soul? Does it bother you when you don't even know? Can't you see? You're not free. I know you can be if you try. I know you can